you got to change your scenery. And my concept is that sometimes you don't want to wait around for some fucking catastrophe to happen to you, like happened to me originally, that helped me change my scenery. You got to manufacture it sometimes. If you want to do something with your life and you're serious about it, you got to take the initiative and change your scenery. Start cutting out the negativity. Only room for positivity in this space. And then in the beginning, while you're developing that habit, you got to be a little bit harsh with it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abhinav Jain, and this is the Real Abhinav Video Experience. On this episode, I talked to Jefferson K Rogers. Jefferson is an entrepreneur and a businessman who also has his own coaching and mentoring programs. The reason I brought him on this podcast was because he used to be a chronic weed smoker for 20 plus years, and he realizes that he had to change his life. And guess what? In just 3.5 years, he started his own business, and they're set to reach close to $20 million in revenue this year. We discuss how he did this, and of course we talk about how an addictive mindset, something that you guys hear me talk a lot about, can be used for your advantage rather than your detriment. He also shares insights on how going through extreme situations in his life have actually been a blessing in disguise. So if you find yourself stuck at all, this is going to be very motivating for you. We also talk about the 5 pillars of focus for bettering yourself. Now, if you're listening to this podcast because you find yourself stuck and in need of a motivating, positive community, I really encourage you to join the Better Yourself Discord group. The link for that is in the podcast notes. I'll see you in there. Let's get back to the show. We're back with another episode. We got Jefferson Rogers in the house. How are you, Jeff?
Doing fantastic, man.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Met him through TikTok. I saw a video of yours and I couldn't resist. You were talking to the real Brad Lee on his podcast, and I heard the soundbite and it really caught my attention. You said, I was smoking weed for 20 years. And that was your basically lifestyle for that long period of time. And from that point on, you're now running a business. Just in, I think, 3.5 years, I heard now you're about to reach maybe 20 million in revenue. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll do pretty close to 20 million. We've had, when you grow that fast, you got a lot of problems that you cause yourself. So 20 million was the original goal. We won't quite reach 20 million, but we're pretty damn happy with what we've accomplished.
For 3.5 years, dude, that's still impressive as hell. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, listen, let's not go too far into that. I mean, that's the cherry. I want to get into the dirt. I want to figure out this 20 years of smoking. The reason being, right? So I started making content online. I've been making stuff online for a while, but recently in TikTok's last 6 months, I started making videos about, hey, if you're under 25 and you smoke weed every day and you feel anxious, you feel stuck, you feel lost, reach out. And you'd be surprised at how many young adults out there, I'm getting people that are anywhere from 10 years old to upwards of, 30, 40 years old. They're like, man, this has been my lifestyle every single day. Can you imagine 10, 12-year-old kids, 16-year-olds smoking so much weed that they're like completely blown out of their mind? That's just unheard of.
It's sad. They didn't have that good of weed when I was 13 when I started smoking. We had to pick all the seeds and the stems out of it first. And we had to smoke so much of it to get high that it was crazy. Now
it's just a vape pen. You press a button, you're high. You don't even have to light anything.
Yeah, it's crazy what they have available to them now.
And that just shocked me. And that kind of brought myself to realize, man, there's a huge need for people that need a way out from this, and including myself. I started, I'm in the tech world. And when I started working earlier in my career, I moved away from my family. I went and lived in the valley, so by myself. A lot of stress, very stressful environment every single day, and the commuting and all. And I was like having no outlet, and I used to compete in bodybuilding in my teens, and that gave me a lot of discipline. But when I started working, I forgot that wasn't getting the priority, and that started to really show up in my life more and more. And weed started to take over as this relaxing activity, quickly becoming a daily indulgence to it's just high all the time, and because you could afford it, it was well, fuck it. It is what it is. I mean,
yeah, I can relate.
Tell me more about this from your side, from 20 years of course, he's got the gallon jug right there. Shit, hold on a second. I got a small bottle. I got to do the same thing so I can show my bicep too, Just fucking with you.
I've been taking creatine, man. They say you got to drink lots of water when you take creatine.
Are you really? That's great.
But yeah, man, I started young. First time I ever smoked weed was at a friend's house. His dad had a vert ramp in their backyard. They owned the local skate shop.
Oh, cool.
And he's no longer with us. But this kid, he, bad influence. We were good friends, but I chose to not hang out with the best of influences. And so at 13 years old, I end up hanging out with this kid that knows where his dad's weed stash is and the bong. And that was my first taste of it. And we had to pick all the seeds and the stems out. And how your sense of smell and the memories that are tied to it
yes,
are so strong. Now everywhere I go, I'm still around the weed all the time, especially now. It's so much more prevalent and people have it so much more available to them. They can just drive 30 minutes from my house and go into a store and buy it. That was was never available when I was a kid. So now I got all of these smells that trigger memories all the time of those 20 years of party houses and crack houses and desert parties. And, so many vivid memories come from those smells that you can never get rid of. You just have to, you got to condition your mind to do something else with it besides want to go back to doing it.
So what was going on in your life? Let's say, of course, that's the 13. So let's say like 13 to 23, the first 10 years, you were maybe finishing school, I imagine, and still smoking weed. But what was happening for the next 10 years after that, from 23 to, let's say, 33, that you were consuming so much weed as well?
Yeah, man, I had divorced parents, very, very busy. They were both amazing, but I had a lot of free reign during those years from 13 to 17. By the time I graduated, I had gone to live with my dad, which was a firefighter in Las Vegas, and he worked these 24-hour shifts, and it was 2 hours away from our house. So he spent a ton of time down there, and I basically had the house to myself all the time. So we could smoke, and it would be gone by the time he got home, and he would never have any idea, or, maybe he did and had kind of a intuition about it, but he never approached me until I was 17 years old about it. So for years and years and years, I smoked, and I never had anybody question me. And I had so much free reign. I went to so many parties that it was, you start to develop these habits and these patterns and a group of friends that that's all. Eventually that was all I knew. And
so all you could think about is just getting
over
high.
and over and over. Yep. And it's making the phone calls every day and seeing where everybody was at. And, hey, you got any weed? Who's got the weed? It was, it started to be a lifestyle and consume a lot of my thoughts. So, that 10-year span, especially from 13 to 23, was not all that productive.
And then what about the next decade? Because you said 20 years of it. So usually in your 20s, people are starting to realize I got to get a job. I got to maybe move out of my house. Maybe I want to get married.
Yeah.
Like, where did all that fit in?
I started having some of those thoughts, and I had great influences in my life too, with my parents and my aunts and uncles. But I was, I was kind of like the guy on the couch from 21 until I was 24, 25. So there was a lot of years there where I had some injuries from motorcycle accidents, and I couldn't work. So I had people that cared about me and loved me and let me sleep on their couch, and they just happened to smoke weed and drink too. So I got to drink and smoke weed for free while I lived there. So it was kind of enabling me to continue these patterns over and over and over. And I always had kind of this presence too, that even though I was the freaking guy on the couch and smoking and drinking for free most of the time, everybody loved me. It was like, God, you could not have a worse set of circumstances for somebody to ever get themselves out of this shit for what I was going through. Everybody just loved me and just gave me all their free weed and alcohol for years and years and years.
Wow.
Until I finally, I had this conversation with my brother one time. We lived together and we were out in the shed and we're doing knife hits. You ever done knife hits?
Knife hits? No, tell me about this.
Oh my God, dude. So you take butter knives, and we had like an old gas burner that you would cook.
Oh shit! I know where this is going.
Cook like propane, mashed potato, or what do you call them? Dutch oven potatoes on.
Yeah.
And we would set the knives on there, and they would get red hot. And then you got your nugs all set out, and then we just grab the nug, and then you slam it together, and it was like vaporizing it.
Ah, wow.
So
Dude,
we were sitting out there one day, and I think I was 22 years old, and my brother's 17 months younger than me.
Yeah.
And he says, man, what are you going to do? I mean, all you've been doing is partying, and we pretty much pay your rent for you, and you just live for free, and we buy all the groceries. And
yeah,
I mean, he was kind of pissed off, and he was disappointed, and it, it hurt. And he was asking me what my 5-year plan was. And of course, I didn't have anything planned. I never had goals. I didn't have direction. And I got a little bit defensive with him. And I told him, I'll tell you what, dude, my 5-year goal is to party my ass off for the next 5 years and do as much of that as I possibly can. I'll figure the rest out after.
And you weren't working at this time. I've got a quick favor to ask of you. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could take 1 minute of your time and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It goes a long way, and I'd really, really, really appreciate it. If you've already done that, thank you again. Please share this episode with someone you know, a friend or family member. Download the episode or share the link, whatever works for you. Now let's get back to it.
I was off and on, doing odd end jobs, construction, masonry. Very little.
Yeah. Okay.
Very little.
So you have this conversation with your brother, and that gets you kind of on edge a little bit because someone's now questioning you for maybe the first challenging time.
Yeah. Where it was somebody that was supposed to be looking up to me. This is my little brother. I'm the oldest of 4 boys. And I'd been told my whole life that I was a natural leader, and your brothers look up to you and, be a good example. And I had plenty of people try and point me down the right path and give me some direction, but I was never ready to hear it. I was so far down the path that it went in one ear and out the other from aunts and uncles and mom and dad.
Yeah.
But I remember that conversation because it kind of stung that I was so blind and so prideful that my first response was to tell him I was just going to do 5 more years of this, man.
Yeah.
Let me be. And I have a couple of those stories throughout my life that are like really vivid memories and points in time that were kind of a seed that was planted and a change of trajectory for me, because now it was planted in my mind that I did never want to have that feeling again. I didn't ever want to have that conversation again with somebody and have somebody call me out and not be prepared to answer it better and have a better story and be actually having accomplished something.
So you're getting into your late 20s. How did that 5-year plan work out for you?
So I didn't quite make it the whole 5 years. I ended up, I broke my leg really bad in 2008. It was a great big motorcycle jump that I had commissioned one of my friends with a tractor to go help us build out in the desert. And we took a little break from jumping to go out and smoke a joint. And then we came back to do some more jumps and tricks. And it was a great big step up jump. It was about 80 feet from the top of the launch to the top of the landing. So, and it was 2 big mountains. So
peak to peak
about 80 feet. And we were doing whips and we were doing heel clickers. And, there was a guy out there doing Supermans, kind of just pushing our limits.
Daredevil shit, man. Wow.
Doing some daredevil shit.
Wow.
And I, after I got back, I was a little stoned and doing stuff, pushing my limits a little bit. I went for a heel clicker, which is where you're hanging onto the bars and you go to click your heels up over the top of the handlebars. But I had clicked an extra gear on accident. And instead of jumping 80 feet, I jumped about 110 feet. And I landed on the upside of the next hill and just piled myself. So I shattered my heel. it broke into like 25 pieces, and I smashed my face on the handlebars, and right across here was all split up and bleeding, and I'd busted out my goggles and blood was splattered, and I knocked myself out. And it was a really bad break. Also, I pulled my foot out of my boot, and all your toes are supposed to connect into your heel, but when it's destroyed, there's nothing to connect anymore. So when I pulled my foot out of my boot, my size 12 foot turned into like this ball of bones. It was crazy.
You're gonna make me throw up.
Yeah. So for the 3 months after that, I had this device on my leg where they had to drill pins into my shin, drill pins into my big toe. And they had this fixator device, kind of like what you have to hold your neck together when you're broken, but it was for my leg. So they could kind of put it back in the general area where it was supposed to be. And they just let it heal right there. So the thing is, it's still messed up to this day. It was bad break. But now, I'm at this almost like these changes of trajectory in your life. You got to pay attention to them. Sometimes you have to manufacture them yourself. Sometimes there's like some kind of catastrophe, like destroying your leg, that sets you down a different path. So there I am, the guy on the couch again, another injury, can't pay rent, smoking all the weed and drinking all the alcohol. And I just, I knew that this didn't align with who I was and who I was meant to be and some of the potential that I knew that I had in me. This commercial comes on one night when I'm sitting there watching TV for Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. And they had one in Orlando and one in Phoenix. And I don't know anybody in Orlando, but I have an aunt and uncle that live in Mesa. It was about 40 miles away from North Phoenix where that campus was. Look, I'm starting to bleed.
What happened? Did you ride another motorcycle into this show?
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
You can go take care of that if you want.
I had a mole removed.
Oh, I see.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, while Jefferson goes and fixes his bleeding. Man, I can't wait to ask him about some of these other things, though. Very interesting for a man to go from smoking weed 20 years and then coming back and realizing that he wants more out of his life. For a lot of you that listen to me, especially if you're in the Discord group or if you see me on TikTok, you feel like there's no way out. Well, that's just not the case. There's a lot of you out there that feel like it's not possible to change your situation. I was just giving some dead space there, Jefferson. But
right on, man.
Talking about the fact that a lot of my audience, which is young, that smokes a ton of weed, and some of them are just like, dude, I don't think I can ever stop. There's no way out. How do I change my situation? And I was just kind of using your story as a guide, like to hear someone that's been doing it for 20 years and then decides to make a change. Of course, it wasn't a one-day situation that turned everything around, but to make that change and then see that, you've been able to build a business from all that focus that you gained back. I'm sure you were very much of a scattered human being all over the fucking place, high as a kite,
Absolutely.
Just no idea of what to do and just going from...
Oh, man. I was like worst case scenario you could think of. Bradley was sitting there trying to tell me that there's different kinds of weed that you can smoke that doesn't make you as high and you can function on. I tried all this fucking types of weed. I tried the pens. I tried the sativas and the hybrids and the indicas. It did the same thing to me.
Well, the problem is if you do it every day, you build this tolerance. So, you need more and more just to even feel the effects.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're getting to a stage where you're no longer going to be productive. I mean, some people argue with this all the time, like, I could be productive on weed. It's like, dude, you haven't smoked long enough. Like, give yourselves fucking 10 years and then see how productive you are. And what is your productivity like? I mean, who are you comparing your productivity to? Right? Like a lot of us have this delusional
idea.
idea.
That justification a lot.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm good. I have my shit together. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, you don't even have enough money for your whole family to go on vacation. Like, how is that having your shit together? I mean, that's just my judgment, So tell me a little bit about, so you got this injury, and was this like the stepping stone, the turning point, the inflection point in your life where you're like, shit, man, I need to change something?
This was one of the big ones, yeah. So at this point, I'm living with two of my little brothers. They're both paying the rent payment for me, and I'm mooching off of them, buying groceries and everything for me. And man, it's just a shitty feeling being the older brother and having to rely on your little brothers to take care of you. As much as they loved me and they didn't have a problem doing it, it It didn't feel right. And it just kind of hangs over your head that you want to be the one providing and offering opportunity and doing those things for them, not vice versa. So I end up signing up to go to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I leave in September of 2008. And it was a life-changing thing. As soon as I got there, it was, one of the scariest, most memorable moments in my life, because I was trying to come up with every excuse to go back home. And I'd planned it out, and I had a bus route, and I was going to just make my way back there. I wasn't going to tell anybody.
Why? To get high?
Just to go back into my comfort zone.
Okay.
So I could go back to smoking weed and go back to my friends and back to drinking. And I had moved from one extreme to the other. I was living at the party house. We had a big flower pot shelf around our kitchen, and it was completely lined with Crown Royal bottles.
Yeah. Wow.
And my brother at the time was selling weed. So we had, right there in the back room in the safe, there was a garbage bag full of weed.
Ooh, dangerous.
And I knew right where to go back to, and I knew that they would take me back with open arms. But, I had some long days, long phone calls with my mom, really emotional. I think I cried pretty much for like the first week straight. I was just so uncomfortable and so out of my element. And it was such a challenge that I had put in front of myself that I knew was necessary to be able to get me out of those old habits and those old patterns, but it didn't make it any less scary. So, but I stuck it out, man. I started school, and I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a driver's license during those years because I had an alcohol related ticket while I was driving at 19, and they took away my license, and then I kept driving and I kept getting caught, and they kept tacking on more time. So 6.5 years, I didn't have a driver's license. And during this whole time I was at school, I had to ride my bike. So school was 40 miles away. So I had to ride my bike 5 miles to the guy's house that I arranged to get a ride with. He would give me a ride 40 miles to school. Then he'd give me a ride back. I'd ride my bike to the gym. Then I'd ride it to work. I had a job at a Mexican restaurant, being a food runner, grabbing the trays and taking them out to people's tables. And then at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I would ride 9 miles back to my house. So it was 24 miles a day, pretty much, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, for 18 months.
So at this time, you weren't smoking that much weed?
No, the only time that I smoked weed, there was a friend of mine that gave me a nug while we were at school, and I snuck away from the house on the weekend. And, it was like this is another memorable moment. I went down by the canals. If you've ever been to Arizona, they've got these canals everywhere with dirt roads that run alongside them. So I went down one of these canal roads on my bike, and I sat there and watched the sun go down, just leaned up against a block wall.
Yeah.
Smoking a joint. And this person walks by, and I can still hear myself today saying, like, my true being, this is who I am. I said, it was pitch black, and I just said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then it was like, what the fuck are you doing sitting here in the dark on a dirt road, leaned up against the wall, high as a kite? You just scared the shit out of that person. So it was just like, felt like a dirt bag. So then, not too long after that, I went back home and smoked another time and made myself sick. And I was dating my wife at the time and ended up passing out at this guy's house. There's some of these moments that I remember vividly because of the shame that I felt for going back on some of my promises and putting myself in these situations and just feeling like a fucking dirtbag.
But maybe I missed it. I'm really curious to hear about how the heck did you go from being a chronic smoker, and then you go to school and all of a sudden you don't smoke anymore. How does that even happen? Because everybody tells me, including myself, like, dude, it's very hard to stop. you have crazy withdrawals, can't sleep, appetite is fucked up, you know, and you just want to smoke. Like, how did you make that change? Like, tell me more about that.
Well, I think I'm writing a book right now, and it has a lot to do with just my mentality and some of my thought processes that help me just flip a switch and make a change of direction really quickly. And it wasn't really that hard. I moved from that house where we had all the alcohol and the weed straight into my aunt and uncle's house that were, you know, some of like the local leadership in the Mormon church.
Okay.
So I moved straight into one of their spare bedrooms, and they started having the missionaries come over and talk to me. So it was literally like one extreme to the other.
Wow.
Which I needed, because that first week was hell. It was crazy. I don't know if it was withdrawals or if it was just like so much emotional overload from that change that I literally cried for like an entire week. And
probably all the shit you were suppressing from smoking so much. And now it's.
Yeah, I was actually able to feel some emotion for the first time. I mean, right. When you go that many years without actually being clear-headed, you have to deal with some stuff. And
so for someone that smoked for that many years, would you say that obviously you enjoyed being high, otherwise you wouldn't keep doing it, but yeah. What's more enjoyable, that high feeling or being so fucking clear and sharp in your mind that you just feel like you can dominate anything?
Yeah, I think it's not even comparable, the difference between being high and that feeling of being a dirtbag and being paranoid and not wanting to talk to people and looking myself in the face in the mirror with those red eyes and just, you know, not being able to really be me and talk to people and socialize and kind of feeling ashamed and afraid to go places so people wouldn't see me like this. Because when I got high, it was very, very apparent. There was no questioning whether I was fucking high. It didn't matter what kind of weed it was or how much it was. I was instantly. You're
a different person.
A different person.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize. Is like they know, I'm better when I'm high. I'm like, dude, you're not yourself when you're high. You know what I mean? Like, how can you say that that's the better version of you if you don't even understand who you are? And especially for the younger people, they haven't even developed what their personality is, what their character is like, what their strengths are. And now they've thrown this huge variable in that completely puts everything into a giant whirlpool and you're just lost. And that just scares the shit out of me. Like, imagine if I had kids that were 10, 12, 15, they were smoking weed, I'd be like, what the fuck? This kid's fucked. What am I going to do? You know?
It's scary. My dad, scary. First time my dad found my stash, he had the same feeling. Like, he went into panic mode. And I'm sure he'd smoked some weed. He never would admit it, but it scared the shit out of him. And all he knew to do with his experience and the way that he was raised is just fucking kick my ass. He tossed me across the room and beat the shit out of me and bloodied me up and tried to teach me a lesson that, I didn't learn for many, many years after that, but he just didn't know what to do. It scared him so bad that his oldest son that was named after him is, going down this path. It's a scary fucking deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what kind of hurt me or made me realize the most is that I was harming with my actions my mom so much, because she's like, my older brother, he's disabled. So a little history about me. We moved to this country, immigrated because my older brother, he's handicapped and we wanted to give him a better life. My dad sacrificed his whole business. My mom sacrificed her career. Immigrants working their ass off all the time just to make sure we can all, 5 of us are living in like a 2-bedroom apartment, in California. It's not cheap. So we're trying to make this happen. And, they put me through school. They put me through all these things. And here I am just only caring about myself, only caring about the next time I can get high, only caring about how good I can feel. And I didn't realize how much damage it was doing emotionally to my family. Seeing their son, the one that they thought was going to be the normal one, because their first son wasn't that way. And now they're seeing like, dude, this kid's just now in the drugs life. And, they saw, they didn't want to say you shouldn't do it, you can't do it, because at that point I was already living on my own. I was already making 6 figures. I was already doing well by society's standards, but they knew deep inside I'm hurting. And that's probably why I keep doing this. And I was going through a lot of anxiety. I was borderline depressed. My testosterone level was like down to fucking an 80-year-old man. And I just couldn't get out of that situation no matter what I wanted to do. And it just started to become this routine every day, every evening, as soon as I'm done with work, or sometimes fucking during work. Like, it didn't even matter at some points in time because it just became such a normal habit, you know? And it sounds like that's similar to where your realization came too. And I'm interested in this idea that you talk about, like going from one extreme to the other. I heard you say this in another podcast of yours, like that you have an addictive personality. And I feel like that's something that I would say I have as well. At least I have that mindset of if I'm going to do something, a lot of people would doubt or say like, there's no way you'll do that. And I'll be like, that's great. I will show you that I'll do it. Like when I wanted to go into bodybuilding, I was 111 pounds, you know, and I was like 5'2" or 3 at the time. And I was like, and people were like, you will never place, you will never do anything, you know, just, this is a stupid idea. And I didn't give a shit, you know, when I competed, you know, I mean, right now, I'm not at my competitive state, but when I competed, I got up to like about 170 pounds, like ripped to shreds, you know, 4% body fat, looking just gross and just freaky and, you know, and winning. And at that time I was like, you know, this is more for me than for anybody else. And it really proved to me that having this mindset of if I set that this is my intention, this is what I'm going to do, it doesn't matter what it's going to take. We're going to get there one way or another, and all the setbacks and all. And I started to lose some of that when I started smoking weed. I started to take the easy road out. And like when things got hard, like, fuck it, let's just get high. It's okay because you get that fucking mood and you don't care. Now your diet doesn't matter. Now nothing outside of the immediate moment of indulgence matters. Is like the mindset that you kind of form. I don't know if you started to notice that in you. I want to take another quick moment to thank our sponsors, Podcast Backdrops. If you do any kind of video content or pictures online, or you're doing any sort of selling over Zoom calls, you really need to check them out because it will make you look professional from the get-go. Having your brand, your logo, and what you're all about behind you, hiding all your clutter, makes you look so much more professional when you put yourself out there on the internet. So check out Podcast Backdrops if you want to level up your game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's what's scary is for me, it's all in any direction that I'm in. So when I was preparing for that physique show, it was very similar. I was able to just focus 100%. I was eating out of Ziploc bags for 100 days. And there was no question whether or not I was going to complete this thing and give it my very best and give myself the best chance of winning. And I didn't compete in the open class, but I competed in the true novice with a bunch of dudes. And I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. And I ended up winning that class.
That's awesome, man.
And there's, you can also go the complete opposite direction too, where, afterwards for a couple of weeks, I'm eating tacos and ice cream and Buffalo Wild Wings.
That rebound.
And that rebound. And of course, you're going to put on weight anyways right afterwards when you make that big of a change in your diet.
Yes.
But it was kind of one extreme to the other. And for a short period of time there, I was just eating whatever the hell I wanted.
So one thing that I've started to use more and more with my community and the people that are trying to better themselves from smoking weed is if you have an addictive personality, if you are hooked on weed or you're just very adamant about this is my lifestyle, you already know how to live with discomfort. You already know how to live in pain. You already know how to find a way to make enough money so you could keep getting high. So you already have that perseverance. All we got to do is give you a different goal to pursue instead 100%. Of the weed, right? That's all it is at the end of the day is if you can channel that mindset of yours into one thing differently, your life will change geometrically. It'll be fucking different. For you, it's crazy to hear this story. 3.5 years, man, building a business almost at 20 million in revenue. That's crazy. That's unheard of. One of the questions that this kid asked me to ask you, he said okay, so he built this business. He wanted to know how much did you, what was your initial starting point investment wise, or how did you start it?
I mean, that's what's crazy is I started with nothing pretty much. I had these guys that I was talking to that were business owners. They actually have a podcast. You may have heard of it. It's called The Real Business Owners.
Okay. Yes, I have.
And these guys are good, man. They were both friends of mine before. One of them I went to high school with. One of them, we were a year apart growing up. We rode bikes together.
Yeah.
And I'd known these guys for a long time, and I was seeking out that advice and that mentorship and the guidance. And I didn't really have any resources for that. Didn't know what it looked like at this point. And I didn't have the money to go pay a coach or pay a mentor or consultant company like I do now. So I called one of these guys up one day and asked him if I could come chat with them and wanted to get some advice. And it was kind of, they're an accounting firm as well. So I was getting some tax advice for where I was at in my previous company. But I started talking to them about this idea that I had, taking the same business model that I'm doing right now for this other company. And I'm doing all of the things within their business anyways. So I may as well start thinking about what it looks like to start my own. And they also have this financing division within their accounting firm, or they're the same building anyways. It's a subsidiary of their businesses. And I asked him how much he thought that I should borrow or how much capital I would need to go start this business. And the guy knew very little about my business. And he looks at me straight in the eye and he says, "You know how to sell, don't you? That's what you're doing right now, is you're selling." And I said, "Well, yeah, I know how to sell, but I think I'm going to need capital. I'm going to have to order windows. I'm going to have to pay commissions and I have to pay myself." I was scared to death.
Yeah.
And he said, "Listen, you go out there and you do the same exact thing that you're doing right now. You're going to do it at a different level because it's now going to be yours. And you go out and collect money. The condition of this agreement that you're making with these customers is that you have to collect 50% up front. Am I right?" "Yes, absolutely." "So just go out there and go sell faster than you've ever sold before and talk to more people than you've ever talked to before. This is your baby. So go do it like it's like your world depends on it."
Were you always a people person?
No, hell no. I was a fucking stoner for 20 years. Dude. I didn't hardly talk to anybody for 20 years.
And from that, you developed sales acumen. That's fucking cool. How did you do that?
I always wanted to do something with my life. I didn't want to be a fucking
sales
stoner.
is like the hardest thing. I guess going back to the polarity, you want to do either fucking nothing, sit on the couch, or fucking let me go kill to eat.
I'm going to go out and knock doors. My first sales job was knocking doors.
Gotcha.
I went from working as a mechanic and a carpenter. Both of those, I didn't hardly have to ever talk to anybody. So I could come to work stoned and sometimes drunk, and nobody would ever know. Nobody would ever question me.
Yeah.
And I could just keep to myself. Nobody ever knew. Back then, there wasn't any pens or anything. So I would just, I'd have a little apple in my car and I'd smoke out of an apple or whatever was going to be the most discreet way of doing it. And I tried to talk to as little people as possible, because if I looked at anybody in the eye, I thought they were going to know immediately that I was fucking stoned.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And
then it was an opportunity that I had spent all of these years just working my ass off. And now I'm married and I've had my first daughter, and I need to make more money than ever. And I want to provide a good family or good life for my family. And this job that I had, even though it was good compared to some standards, $70,000 a year, it just wasn't fulfilling. And I'm working 70 hours a week and watching my kids grow up over cell phone pictures. And it was not what I wanted to continue to do. So I had an opportunity to go do sales with a friend of mine, and it was the scariest thing I ever did. And for the first long period of time, I was not very good at it. And I have since learned how to smile, but back then I had a terrible smile, and I was most of the time just scowling everywhere that I went, just unintentionally, this resting bitch face. So I had all of these things working against me, but because I saw these guys seeing success in this same line of work, the exact same thing that they were telling me I could see success in if I put enough time and effort and developed myself. If these fucking guys can do it, they are nothing special. There's no reason why I can't do it. I'm just going to have to go put in the work. And the only thing that separates the amount of success that they're having compared to where I'm at right now is time and experience.
Yeah, no, that's that. And then if you can find a product that you actually know and love and care about, you can sell it much easier than when you have to pretend to be like someone that's excited about it, in my experience.
Yeah. And I found that in windows. I remember the first time this guy brought this window to my house. He was a friend of mine, kind of a mentor. He was a real estate investor, business owner. He had made, upwards of $500,000 a year in income. And he brings a window to my house. It was like the most confusing thing at the time because this guy, what I knew about him and his success, he started working for this window company selling windows.
I'm keeping tabs. I know you got a dip soon, right?
Yeah. My guy's running a few minutes behind, so we got a couple extra minutes.
Cool.
But yeah, he comes to show me this window, and it was the most amazing window that I'd ever seen. I grew up building houses, installed a lot of windows, just a contractor grade window, and this thing was mind blowing. And he had kind of came to me with the idea and planted the seed that this is what I'm doing, and I want to partner with you to start our own business. And this was my intention coming in here from the beginning. Was I'm not like planning on making a career with this company. I want to learn their business model as much as I can about it so I can go start my own window business.
Right.
And we can do this together. So originally I was supposed to be one of the partners, and they ended up doing it without me. And I just ended up being one of their top salesmen. But it turned out exactly how it was supposed to, because they're right around the same size or smaller than they were back when I left them 3.5 years ago. And I'm now doing, close to 10 times as much as they are.
Fuck. That's so good. Jefferson, you're going to hate me for going back to this, but I really want to give value to the audience that listens to me. And a lot of them are, like I said, in a hard place. They're young. They're trying to figure out their first step. They want to just get off the weed and find some habits that actually help them.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit about, so here's the pillars of the group and the program that I'm working on. The 5 pillars are exercise, nutrition, hydration, meditation, and sleep. What would you add to this? Journaling, maybe?
Goals.
Goal setting.
Yeah. One of those new habits that I picked up from that mentor program that I started with Grant Cardone back in 2017, he says he writes his goals down every morning and every evening.
Yes.
And I'd never written a goal down in my entire life at that point. That was only 3.5 years ago. Almost 4 years ago now, because that was November 2017. So I started writing my goals down. And the first time I did it, this is going to be for all your listeners. They may be at the same exact point in their life where they've never fucking written in a journal. They've never written a goal down. And it's like, well, how much weight can this really carry? I mean, this sounds like a bunch of hokey bullshit, but it fucking works. It's been proven to work that if you write your goals down and you have targets and you put together an action plan to go reach those goals, and you visualize what it's going to look like and you write them down as if it's already happened, then these things will start to happen if you're willing to put in the work. And in the beginning, it was just started with one sentence. I didn't even know what to fucking write. I just felt dumb at the time.
But that's where it starts. It starts with clarifying what the hell it is you want to try to go towards, so your mind can start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just like aiming in the dark. Like, where are you going?
Yeah. And that's where it has to start. Either you keep spinning your wheels with no direction and you're drifting in life like 99% of people do, or you start putting little things down on paper, whether it's little targets or big targets. I chose the biggest fucking targets that I could think of that my mind was capable of thinking at that time. Like Grant Cardone said, he told me to write these 10x goals down, 10 times the normal size of what your goal would be right now, and then put your action plan together to go reach that 10x goal. Because what most people do is they set these little tiny goals and then they come up short and they didn't hardly fucking do anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
But if you set a 10x goal and an action plan to go hit it and you come up 50% short, or even 60%
5x ahead, bro.
You're still 5 times, 6 times bigger than what you would have been if you would have set a normal goal.
What was that saying? Shoot for the stars and land, or no, shoot for the moon, land on the stars type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. So I used to, at a point in my life, judge everyone when I started bodybuilding and working out based on how their physique looked. And I'd be like, I don't give a shit what this guy has to say if he's fat, because he clearly doesn't know what matters in life. Yeah. Over the years, I learned that, okay, just because you're a gym rat doesn't mean you're a successful human being, because most of them are just drug addicts that literally have no other discipline outside of working out. What would you say is the benefit or the advantage of having a regimen where you're exercising daily? Like, how does that affect you mentally? How has that affected you on a business perspective? showing up every day? What is that like?
Yeah, I think the discipline that it takes to get to the gym every day, especially when I go, I get up this morning at 4:25. I was at the gym by 5. It takes discipline, and you do anything long enough consistently that is that type of positive impact on your life, it's going to trickle into all the other areas of your life.
Yes.
And then I'm starting out every single day of the week with some wins and a little blood flow and a little epinephrine, or all
the good chemicals that your body releases to handle stress comes out from your exercise versus having to smoke weed, having to fucking take Xanax, or having to do some other stupid things just to tolerate. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that is why I push exercise, nutrition, hydration are the pillars. What about meditation? Have that ever been part of your repertoire, or not much?
Not much. I do it, just not regularly. I just got back from a good trip, a boys trip with some entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, some high level guys. We just went on a boys trip. There was 9 of us, and we did some meditation and some reflection and had a little bit of quiet time that none of us are normally used to because of the fast paced lifestyles that we live. And, I had a couple hours just completely isolated by myself. The only sounds I can hear are the wind in my ears, and looking up at the stars and just taking some time to really think about where I'm at in my life and the things that are important to me. And I absolutely love that. And when you live a fast-paced life like I do, and you got a wife and kids, and you're trying to carve out time to spend with the kids and spend with the wife, the other times that I get my meditation in are typically when I'm driving or when I'm in the car, and I can just shut the door and get as little noise and outside influence as possible, and just take 5 minutes to shut everything out and try and get my mind to stop processing information for that 5 minutes. That's about the gist of my meditation right now.
I love it. I love that. 2 questions come to mind. If I was someone that was under 25 and I'm in this rut of smoking weed every day, what's the one thing I should start with? How do I change myself? How do I cut it down?
You got to change your scenery. And my concept is that sometimes you don't want to wait around for some fucking catastrophe to happen to you, like happened to me originally, that helped me change my scenery. You got to manufacture it sometimes. If you want to do something with your life and you're serious about it, you got to take the initiative and change your scenery. Start cutting out the negativity. Only room for positivity in this space. And then in the beginning, while you're developing that habit, you got to be a little bit harsh with it. I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in the beginning when I started talking like that, because everything to me was threatening my space and my positivity and the direction that I was going. And I called everybody out on their shit, and it didn't sit well with a lot of people.
So protecting your mindset in a way, it seems, right?
Yeah. I was so fucking determined to get from where I was to where I knew that I was capable of going, that I wasn't going to let anybody or anything or any music or TV show or gossiping or anything threaten that. And I called a lot of people out on it. So you got to take the initiative. If you're that serious about making a change, you have to change.
Love it. Jefferson, what makes you happy?
I get a lot of fulfillment out of helping people and creating success stories. This business, I think one of the reasons why it's thrived is because of that. And being able to take somebody off the street, whether they're a plumber working at a medical office or doing construction or working as a restaurant chef, and being able to show them how to make as much in 1 month as they used to make in a year. And all of the, there's challenges that come with it, and there's new habits that these guys have to develop. But, I've gotten to be a part of a lot of these success stories and been able to coach and mentor these guys through that process of learning how to handle all this money that they've just came into, and how that is now going to change the entire rest of their lives and their families' lives. Because once you make $100,000, once you make $200,000, I got a guy last year that made $550,000. You can't fucking go back to making $100,000. You can't go back to making $75,000. You're going to do anything in your power. And now you have the skills and abilities and the confidence to go out and reproduce it because of whatever little impact I had on them.
That's fantastic. Will you come back again if I can bring some of the audience from the community, if they want to ask you questions? Will you come back and do a show like that?
Absolutely, man. I'd love to come out and sit on the show with you.
Look at that. He committed right here, you guys. Make sure we hold him accountable for this one. So
I'll be back.
He'll be back. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate you being so open and considerate with your time. So I don't take it lightly. So thank you so much. I know the people listening to this will really appreciate your experience and your words.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you supporting me. And I hope somebody, if only one person got something out of this, it'll be worth it.
I sure as shit did. So you already helped me. I appreciate you.
Shit.
All righty. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you for checking out this show. I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to hear from you. If you want to give me any feedback or want to get in touch, know someone that I should put on the show, reach out to me on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you are online. You bet you can find me there. Just search for The Real Abhinav. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.